Good evening. Welcome to Street Talk. So glad you could join us this evening. Tonight we have a special surprise guest, and we're here because 2018 is a very important year. 2018 is when we're going to be going out and we're going to be voting for every statewide office in all of Connecticut, but not just the statewide office, for congressional candidates and also for U.S. Senate candidates. Unfortunately, you're going to have to wait a little while before we get to see another presidential race again. I don't know if that's fortunate or unfortunate, as it seems like the race never ends between all those things. But here's where the rubber meets the road. This is why getting out and voting is so important. Because if you want to have a voice in anything that's going on, you need to get to know your candidates now. And so I was lucky enough to be at a candidate forum where they had all the gubernatorial candidates, all the candidates for Attorney General, and we have one of the candidates that was there for Secretary of State. Karen, welcome to our show here.
Thank you, Don.
So I always ask two questions. The two most important questions that there are why are you running? And I'll get to the second one after you're done with why are you running, because obviously that's the most important question, is why do you want to go out and do this and provide this service and work within our state. So
Yeah, I've been a Connecticut resident all my life. I've been very much involved for at least 40 years in local government, helping out on boards, commissions, in other community activities. And I think that you do make a difference. You can make a change. And I think that it happens at a local level, which is basically the footing which everything else is built on. I watched people when I was over 40 years ago in my 20s, that you really can make a difference when you touch someone's life. You get into their homes and their lives, and you may not be able to change the world, but you could truly make a world of difference. That drew me in, and it still does. And right now, I am very concerned about the state of our state. And I really don't have anything to lose. I'm widowed. I do have a good job, but I have a lot to offer. And I want to offer to try to help to get our state back on track. And I'm willing to do so. This is my home. The residents of Connecticut are my neighbors, and they are worth fighting for. And I truly like to use the talents that I have to try to jumpstart our state back.
So no, I look at it, and we do our little mini civics lesson whenever we come in here, and I know Secretary of State obviously touches our lives with having to do with every local town with voter registration. But what are some of the other parts of Secretary of State what functions that they have that involve other things aside from just protecting our vote, so to speak?
Yes, and I get that a lot. People say, oh, the Secretary does more than just oversee the voting. And yes, there is. You are responsible for the elections and the voting. But it is the keeper of all the records. Like a town clerk has all the minutes of the meetings and agendas and commissions. But the Secretary of the State keeps all the records of the General Assembly also. So there is a vast wealth of the repository of the records. Business applications for corporations and corporations that is approved through the Secretary of the State's office, the business filings, trademarking, the notary system, the justice of the peace. As you've seen the state website, there is a vast amount of information. But I also think, as you had said, this office is unique to every other constitutional office in the way in which it touches every citizen by way of being the support. And I've always felt public service is just that. Any board or commission that I served on, I was there to serve, not be served. And I think the Secretary of the State should provide the tools, the support, the resources, and the respect to every town clerk, that when they call for information, these are people who take their jobs very seriously. They count on the Secretary of the State's office for support. The town clerks touch all the citizens' lives through the birth, marriage, death records, registering your pet, your fishing license, to registering your businesses, etc., and the keeper of many of the records for people, anybody running for offices, etc. So that uniquely touches people's lives. The registrars of voters, they rely on the Secretary of the State's office. And I think the Secretary of the State's, what I would want to bring is a relationship with the business community. I think that you can be the hub, and you should be working very closely with the chief elected officials, with the economic development commissions, with the Chamber of Commerce's, and really help. As I've been going around the state, people have told me how cumbersome it is. Somebody told me just last week that they started to register their business and ended up stopping, going to Massachusetts, sailed right through, and now have reciprocal privileges with Connecticut. Another businessman told me that a year and a half ago, he started a business. It was him, one employee. His cousin started the same thing in Massachusetts. They sailed right through. He's still talking about the hoops he had to go through. A year and a half later, he's talking about hoops. He should be talking about hopes and dreams and moving his business and growing it. And that we have to change. And that's one of the reasons I want to get in the race. I think that many of our citizens are losing hope. We should have hope. People work hard. A dear friend of mine 2 weeks ago said, I work over 50 hours a week, and I go to bed every night worrying. Like, I'm a parent, so I'm assuming I'm going to worry every night about my child. But why should I worry about if my car is going to, how am I going to do this? I work hard. I'm not lazy. And this is just not right. We should be bringing hope. And I think that even through the Secretary of the State's office, especially with my experience personally, what I've had to go through some struggles, and the experience that I have as a business person, especially a business person who now is the treasurer of a company that is part of a public-private partnership. We have to get business involved if we're going to move the state forward.
Well, you're talking about really whenever somebody's wanting to start a business, the first point of contact is the Secretary of State's office. I know I started my business some 14 years ago. It was an LLC. I didn't think it was the hardest thing on the face of the earth to do, and I do my business filings and everything else online. I know my accountant's in the middle of switching me over from an LLC to an S corp, so I could probably say later how much more or easier or less complicated that is. But obviously, the systems that are in place are intricate and important. And I think from lessons learned through DMV, you can see that the right kind of equipment when you're dealing with it front line, as far as the technology, is super important. Now, you working in business, I take it that you've had to deal a lot with information technology.
Yes, and it's funny that's been my life. You know, hoping for the best but planning for the worst.
Yes.
I worked early on in my career for a top air conditioning company, top HVAC company. We had to deal with hospitals, medical centers. It was critical to have a strategic plan. I mean, we used to have the flying tigers at the time if we needed something that day. And it's all about implementation. And right now, it's a bit disheartening. I've had people have talked extensively about the cumbersome, outdated website. And you're right, for a lot of things I use, there's a search engine, but it can be that much better. I've had so many registrars of voters, town clerks, reach out to me, or them that I have run across and spoke to at different meetings, from one end of the state to the other, talking about the lack of services and lack of support they're getting. And that's just wrong. If you're not even recognizing there's a problem, you're never going to fix it. And we have to plan, just like you said, in my business, we have to stay on top of IT, stay ahead of the hackers, always being diligent. And in this case, you have to work with the cybersecurity experts to protect our system. There's very sensitive information. But we're not doing anything that is exhibiting vision. You know, I've been with the current secretary who says, I don't have to tell you what I've done. Yes, you do. I'm a voter too. Every man and woman, young or old, we go to a job, we have to be accountable. We have to exhibit what we're doing. If I was the same person I was when I walked in my business 8 years ago, they should be showing me the door. I should be better. And when you run for office, it is a well-defined term. You are not being appointed a U.S. Supreme Court justice for life.
No.
We have to be held accountable. I have always been responsible for my actions. We teach our children to be responsible. And someone asked me, it was at a forum the other day, by running, you're basically saying you're trying to fire Denise Merrill. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying your voice is your vote. And if you don't have choices, your vote is absolutely meaningless. And I flipped it around. When I've served, and if I wanted to seek re-election, I should be telling you what I did to deserve that trust you placed in me. And if anyone thinks that the state of our state is in good shape, and you like the status quo, then you see what you have. Personally, I think that we need to jumpstart. Our state budget, to me, looks like a toddler who got a hold of a box of Band-Aids. We are covered in Band-Aids. There needs to be long-term solutions, hard choices made. We need to rip off the Band-Aids and move the state forward. And if the current administration thinks that good is good enough, which was never good enough for me, and you're running in place while the world is moving forward, you're just lagging behind. And we can't. In business, like you said, I'm of value to my company because I'm looking 10, 15 years ahead and moving forward, and the state has to do the same thing.
I remember when I was going for my master's degree, a master's in healthcare administration. One of the main courses was to be able to have that, to teach you how to have that kind of vision, and how to look forward to things, and how to figure out what your goals are for your company. And I think those are the primary parts of what moves us forward. If you don't have a roadmap, and the roadmap might not be specifically labeled out, but if you don't have a pathway that you know forward on what you're going to do, how are you going to get there? I mean, I always look at it as begin with the end in mind. So where do you want to go in the first place? If you don't know where you want to get to, you're never going to get there.
Exactly. And you know what I learned really early on, and no one believes how debilitatingly shy I was. But you need to know that. Where do you want to end up? It's the only way you're going to know how to get there. And I learned early on that I don't have to have all the answers. I worked for construction companies. I've been a project manager on theaters and municipal buildings and parks. Did I know how to do all that? But I sure as heck knew how to get the people that had the answers and build teams and inspire. And this kind of energy, I reached 60, I didn't really slow down. I know there's more years behind me than in front of me, but I just have a lot to get done. And I can inspire things I believe in. I believe in this state, and I know we can really do better. But it's interesting you said that, because so often I'm thinking, I'm just not getting it. It can't be that simple. But it really is. We have to do that in our lives. wasn't used to sharing a story because I said, oh, this sounds like Queen for a day, but it's who I am. I've always worked hard. When I was a cashier in my teens, if there was nobody in my line, I was sweeping floors, stocking shelves, not because the owner told me to, because it was the right thing to do. I was so pleased to have a job. I was working, and anything I did to make that store do better was pleasing to a customer. I might have been shy, but I could smile and treat people like they mattered. And that's what it's all about. I share a story that one day I woke up and my husband didn't. He passed away in his sleep. My son had just started college. There was less money coming in than was going out. And that's much like our state is. There's a lot less zeros, but I had to make tough decisions. We never had a lot, but I always was willing to share with people who had even less. And I couldn't do that. You make tough decisions. I started a business. I worked nights and weekends. And in 18 months, I was able to quit the day job. They actually became a client. And now I'm a treasurer of a multi-million-dollar company. That wasn't easy. It was a will to survive. And my son did this. He pitched in too. We had to work together. He delivered bounce houses in the morning, pizzas at night, and worked at a coffee shop while going to school. We needed to make our family work, and that's what the state has to do too. You work together, and we had a common goal and a common vision. One thing that I find remarkable, especially for someone who's been involved for more than 40 years, we have an executive branch that doesn't really talk to each other. You know, I bring a lot of resources, a lot of different talents and strengths, and not this, I have all the answers, but how is our executive branch not sitting around and talking about all the issues? I've never had a job that was restricted by a job description. I want to be a Secretary of the State that blows out that job description and helps people. I recently did a PSA. It has nothing to do with the Secretary of the State's duties. On the opioid crisis, my family was affected. So many are. The tax situation, we should be working as a team. There are divisions in duties, but if we don't have a common goal and a common purpose and work together in the same direction, we're going to continue to be in the state we're in.
Well, I think, and frequently it's been described to me that when you're running from the governor's office, sometimes you're taking a look at like a 30,000-foot perspective of the lay of the land, and it's almost like you're talking like all those different offices are different silos, and you're looking at them from above, and you don't get to see the picture of what's really in the silos or involved at that level. And I think there are, and this is certainly going to be my questions for the gubernatorial candidates that come on, are what sort of management style do you have when you work within that? I know I've been in management for not as many years as you have, but for quite a few of them. And I always believed in the management by walking around. If you didn't go and take a look for yourself or go meet with people on the front lines to understand what's going on, quite often you're just getting a filtered report that doesn't give you the full understanding of what's happening within that. So I do think that all the constitutional officers, you know, they have to be able to work with each other and to be able to bring that all to whether it's improving relationships that we have with businesses, making it easier and finding the things that we need or don't need in order to be able to do that. But that's our goal. I'm hoping that our next gubernatorial candidate or our governor lays out a vision to be able to encompass all of that so that everybody can be working in the right direction. But I mean, from the people that I talk to now, that's not always the case, and I know there's an importance even within being able to go into the legislature and have them understand what's happening and be walking in lockstep in the same direction. I feel it's unfortunate. The last few years, it seems like the wheels have come off, and everybody seems to be going in their different direction. And I hope in this next election that those are the pieces that we can bring together, so that we do feel like everybody has a common responsibility, and I think defining what that is going to be important. And our economy's changed.
Our economy has changed a lot.
has.
And to your end, that's what I said. I'm one reporter, and I don't get much press, said, why do you want that position? I said, I'm qualified. And well, that doesn't matter. It should matter. And I have deep respect for a position. I have deep respect for any position that I've held, but I'm not that full of myself. I am a roll up the sleeves, get in the ditch, get to work type of gal. And I want to work hand in hand with the people that would look to this office and with the business community. I have been known to build teams. I can inspire. We could reach for the stars when we're on the ground looking up together. But if you're just in Hartford and you got your head stuck up a dome, you're not even looking at the stars. And that's what we have to change. And in business, I'm currently the treasurer of a company that owns all the service plazas in this town, in the state. This was $160 million of private money that paid for that renovation. We now operate those. The state has a constant revenue stream, and we have the risk and the responsibility of all the repairs, the constant upgrades, the constant improvement. We have to join more with business, and on so many levels. You had talked about a voice. I think people are not coming out to the polls. So it's great to make all these headlines about all the increasing the voting rolls. That is meaningless if we are not increasing voter participation. And the voter participation is not there. We've got to do that. And I even think that's where the business community is. It's good business to have employees involved in civic and social responsibilities. There are some communities that will give you a free cup of coffee, maybe a free donut. And I'm always for a free donut, with the sticker that you voted. I think that if you engage businesses, whenever I've been involved, businesses want to be involved with the local government, their local community. And there are probably ways that businesses can encourage their employees to go out, but they should have a voice. But I think we have to exhibit that we have people listening. We have a lot of great people who are in office and maybe incumbency, running for re-election. It's like, geez, I've been working hard. If you've been working hard, go out there and tell people what you've been doing and show people. And I think that that is a way, if people think, what am I going to do? It's the same old thing and nothing is ever going to change. Well, we have to change. Connecticut is a lot better than this. To say that Connecticut is rarely one of the few, I think one of 4 states that is actually shrinking its population. That doesn't happen. We are at the top. I mean, my gosh, we are one of the top colonies in this country. We have a lot of Yankee spirit and grit, and I think we have to restore hope and make people feel that you're sending me to Hartford, whether on your local representatives, your senators, and your voice is heard. You do matter. And it's incumbent on the incumbents and anybody running for office. Why are you running? Do you know what I need to make my life better so I don't go to bed worrying every night? And as a business, I've got a partner. I've been in the business world for way too long, but I still have a lot of vinegar left, and I want to be a partner with businesses and help them grow. And I think our state needs to know we have a problem. Good is not good enough. We can do better, and we will do better. And I know my logo is SOS, and I didn't forget it is Secretary of the State, but it's Save Our State. And that's why I am leaving the comfort of my home and a good job in order to help save our state. Because when all is said and done, it's our actions. Why do we walk this earth? nobody's going to be remembering me that much, if at all. Maybe my son, hopefully. But it's how we touch people and the effect we have on people's lives. And maybe it sounds so Pollyanna-ish, but that is who I am, and that's what I believe in.
So protecting people and protecting lives, but I know recently after the 2016 elections, and obviously it's coming to light, how do we ensure that our votes are protected? Because obviously, while most people are kind of, I don't even understand where this is kind of coming from, don't really get how much Russia has tried to influence our elections either through social media or directly, hacking our systems. How do we protect our systems?
Well, the voting system is basically still a paper system, and that is protected because it's not electronic right now, and that fortunately is safe. One point you made about management and getting to know the people that you are responsible. I've interacted a lot with town clerks just through my years of service, but even more now. I can't run and tell people that I'm going to help them, I'm qualified. I've been sitting down with town clerks. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but a lot of chief elected officials, and very much so in the business community. And with the registrars of voters, I've also recently become a certified moderator to really understand the elections. But the paper ballot is the insurance that your vote is protected. No one is going to alter that. So I think as far as your vote, the way that our system is set up, it is very safe. And you're right, that's a whole other dimension, and I think that between all the news media and the trying to get influence through social media, it really is just instilling fear in people. But I think here in Connecticut that anyone who goes out to vote, and I hope more people you take that ballot, whether it's an absentee ballot, whether you're filling in your little circles, you have a paper ballot that is going to be counted. And taking that moderator course, there are the men and women who come, the election officials, do everything to ensure that your vote is registered, counted, and makes a difference. So I do think here, particularly in Connecticut, and several states have different audit programs. So I think ultimately our system, people should feel secure about that. But it is very sad that there is so much hype that is instilling such fear and doubt in people. And that's truly a shame.
I think a lot of it, and I know this is where some of the voter apathy comes from, is because when it comes to an election season, it's almost like you feel you're inundated from so many different people on so many different sides, and you're never really quite sure, because of Citizens United, where the money's coming from and who's represented within that. And I know I've certainly supported a group that's calling for an Article 5 convention to get dark money and other things out of the system. I don't know how you feel about supporting some of these things that are coming out. Like I know that there's going to be meetings and public hearings on a popular vote. These are all different things that I think are coming around, and they're trying to address what a lot of us feel on the receiving end, that it's almost like they throw so much paint up against the wall that you can't see the wall anymore from all the different variations of things. And I don't know how you feel about those specifically, or how they pertain to Secretary of State, but I know as a voter that's one of my important issues.
Yeah, and you're looking into it. I think that's you would hope in people's busy lives that they could take the time to educate themselves about the things that matter. Because again, I think it all boils down to hope, that people just feel it's not even going to matter. things aren't going to change. But they can and they will. And one of the things that came out of the 2016 election was this huge outcry for change and people running for office. And what would concern me in some ways is running for office is great. But what are you going to do when you get there? Do you bring the qualifications? As one of the elders, it seems, around the table often these days, you know, I've been involved in communities that there's a group that is fighting against something, and they're really good at fighting against. But when they win, it's like, oh shoot, now what do we do? Not so great at fighting for things. And I hope that the election is one day. So you could fight, and we're going to win. You're going to take this seat over. But what are you going to do for my life for the 4 years you're in? You know, I think that's what we're seeing in even the White House right now. So here's somebody with a lot of changes and a lot of ideas, and unfortunately, not so good even at, maybe stop the tweeting, we all know, but respecting how you work in a governmental setting. It's a little different than private. And, you know, I bring that having worked in a municipal setting and want to bring private sector efficiencies. But this is going to affect our lives for years going forward. And we need qualified people who understand issues and how they impact people's lives. And they're representing more than just maybe their own dissatisfaction with one election.
Which is probably a lot of what happened in 2010 with the Tea Party and other things along those lines. I know it's the moment, I think, where we have to stop and ask ourselves, okay, what are our core values and what do we really believe in, not what somebody else should be telling us. And I know I mean, people can read my Facebook posts on a daily basis, and I put out there because I think that if you're going to do anything, if you're going to have people think about stuff, in some ways you live your life out loud, and you put down those thoughts. And some of mine are philosophical, some of them are just observations. That I took in. I know I wrote probably about 8 or 9 different things that I observed that from the candidates forum. And for me is I work in a behavioral health population, and as I like to say, everything happens for a reason. Every behavior has a reason. Every behavior has a reward, and when I'm up there and I'm watching where everybody's from, and you see different people's points of view and why are they running for this office, and that's the question that I ask, deeper than just the response that I know people are going to express their experience and everything else. I think you do. You have to have a certain heart for wanting to help people and for wanting to make a change. And an understanding of what that's like on a base level. And I think of your head of your Woodbridge Town Committee. I know I'm on my Milford Town Committee. I get voted on in that town committee. I represent 60 other registered Democrats. So my words or my actions are the actions of so many others that are around me. It's not just only my words and my voice. It's taking into account the responsibility that comes to mind that you're serving everybody. And I guess I don't take that lightly. I wish more people were engaged. I know that there's a good 50% of our populace in Connecticut that's unaffiliated, whether that's I don't want to be identified, or whether that's I don't want as much mail coming to me. I hate to tell you, if you're unaffiliated, you're getting more mail than if you actually signed up for Republican or Democrat. But I think that people should be more involved, and I think at a town level that helps.
And people matter. And one of the experiences going through this, and I stayed off most of social media, but I saw this woman post something on LinkedIn, and it was, my weeks are usually pretty crazy because job, family, running for office. And I saw this post, and I didn't know this woman at all, but I said, I really apologize if I'm quite presumptuous, but it appears that you recently suffered a loss. And if so, I just hope the joy of the memories that you may have shared can help during any times that the void is too much to bear. And she reached out and said she did. She had a twin. They were the only children of this couple, and her twin was injured in a work-related accident, I believe on Long Island, and he was transferred to Connecticut in a nursing facility and recently died. And he said, my days start at 4 o'clock and end maybe around 11 or 12, but in all of that, I was able to recognize that woman, and it just confirmed what I believe, and I hope I never lose sight of. It is recognizing that person in my day that matters. She matters. You matter. And that is the reason that I'm in this. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow and the candidacy ended, touching that woman's life and reaching out, her notes to me were so sweet and thoughtful. It was worth it. I did suffer losses, and sometimes I think not only things happen for a reason, but so we could be there. I buried 2 husbands. Like I said, my dance card isn't filling up anytime quickly, but that was very tough times. But it lets me appreciate and be there for someone else. And if I had to go through that so that I could be the resource for someone else who feels hopeless. I met a man who was just overwhelmed with the loss of his wife, and we had coffee, and he said, wow, you went through this twice? And it was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get through that. And, you know, my son and I survived that, and we could be there for other people. I'm proud of the empathy he has. That's why I do it. And I work hard. And this is my home, but it is the people that matter. And I feel badly that there is the empathy. Nobody wants to, regardless if you don't want to sign up for a particular party, but you really should let your voice be heard. And I would hope I'd be there. You could tell. I believe in this. I think I'd be the most traveled town chair Woodbridge has had, and people may not remember my name, but they know the chair is, just like you said, you represent those people. I will not be a Secretary of the State that you're only going to see at pancake breakfast and around election times. I want to be visible. I work with teams. We're a team. We have each other's back. And there is a cardinal rule around me. Actually, it's like a mortal sin. Don't ever tell me what you think I want to hear, because we have each other's backs, and we have each other's back when we're open and honest and transparent. That's how I live my life. That's how I conduct my business, and that's what I would be taking for Hartford. I
always look at it this way. You know what? If you really want to find the answers, they're right there in front of you. It's whether you want to hear them or not. And I've worked for large organizations, and I know sometimes I'm not the best person for working in large organizations. That's why I own my own small little niche to the world. But I do understand that mentality that goes along with that. And I think I always felt under the gun because I was the one who was trying to fix things and not necessarily telling everybody that everything above me, because for fear that they would just lose it if they understood how many problems there really are in order to deal with, and then they would go into panic mode and just make things that much worse. I hate to say it, that's somewhere where we stand right at the moment. I think people are understand how difficult it is, and really we're owing it to the citizenry that we serve, if you're in elected office, to be honest and to give people a straight point of view of things and make those tough decisions. And I think it's important to ask yourself where people's values lie when they are in elected office, because I hear different people's plans of, doing this, doing that. And I kind of, it gives me an insight into, okay, well, where are their values and what things are they talking about? And frequently I find, people don't talk about some of the things that I'm involved with, which are rare diseases, disabilities, or other things, or dealing with poverty communities, and because they don't see that we're all interconnected, and it's about how do we bring everybody up together, not one group over the other. And I think, and I hope that by trying to look to bring in more companies and making things more efficient from the state point of view, that we can raise everybody up in that. And I think the one thing that I think of more than anything else, and I hear this thrown around right at the moment, like we have our communities with electric boat, with small manufacturers that need high-tech people, is how do we not recruit but build that from within, but also help build the hope for people who are in those communities to realize that that's something that they can attain,
Exactly. And that's exactly what drew me in. It saddens me profoundly. How do you live without hope? Mm-hmm. And some of I think I told you, I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take care of my business, work a full job. My husband was in a hospital for almost 3 years, and I went there every night. And through all of that, I started a book of joy, because there is joy and hope in every day. And sometimes it's right there. You just have to look for it. And we need hope. And if the people of this state think that the way things are is good enough, if they like the state of our state, then stick with what we have. But if you think we can do better, if you are concerned about the state of our state, if you want hope back, and you want somebody who's going to work hard for you, I would implore people, look at my background. This is like the longest, toughest job interview. Look at my background. Look at the background of all the candidates. See where they've been, what they've done, how they've interacted with people. I would very much welcome and encourage, talk to the people I've worked with. Most of my stuff is online. There's a lot more. Call me. Check it out. I have a record of working, inspiring hope, and I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope in the people, and I want to raise people up, because I want to be right there with them, giving people a hand, not turning away. One story I had told you, how my son and I was just going through college. Things were tough, and he bounced the check, and I'm going, well, what the heck? And he goes, we'll talk about it when I get home. I go, okay, what's going on here? So he came and he goes, Mom, what was I going to do? This man asked me for money. I wasn't going to give money. He might buy drugs, so I took him out to dinner. And he goes, he was the coolest guy. He told me the greatest stories. And I said, well, that's great. Next time, why don't you both go to somewhere we both could afford? Mm-hmm. But here was a man that most people would probably cross the street and try to avoid. And my son, who had just lost his father, his best friend, working 3 jobs, going to college, took this man out to dinner. He gave them so much more than a meal. He gave them respect. He gave them hope. We try to teach our children. My son teaches me to be a better person every day. And that's what I bring. You're making me emotional. But, I care that deeply. It's the people that you represent. And I truly do. It is the only reason that I do this. I truly have nothing to lose, but I have a lot to give. And I think that those are the people that are worth it.
And I think those are the people that you want to have in office, and certainly that deep connection to people, and realizing that this is where we make the difference in the world, is what you do on a day in, day out basis. I'm very fortunate. I work with people with disabilities, and that's my daily life. I have a son that has a rare disease. We try to figure out ways that we can make it easier for people that come after us, so that they don't have to go through or deal with some of the same issues that we have. It's when we walk around in our daily lives, it's realizing that you touch people in all sorts of ways, shapes and forms, and some of them are small things, and sometimes small things make a difference. Sometimes large things make a difference. But like you said, your Secretary of State, it's not some mystified person that's up in Hartford. It's I always like to say, if you take the chart of everybody that goes up to the top and flip it upside down, those are the people that you support. And so our Secretary of State is there to support our businesses, to support our individual voters.
She will be.
Our towns.
She could be. Actually, one of the other things I'm doing on the side is we're having a conference that I've spearheaded on April 5th. And it is a public-private partnership, so that we can further exhibit to the state how we could partner with the private sector on our infrastructure needs. There is so much that can be done. We don't always need bond money, which is just more credit card spending. The private sector has the desire, the funds, the willingness to partner with the state. When the state does better, business does better, and you are creating a heck of a lot of jobs in between. Most of our employees for the service plazas are union employees. It's not eliminating jobs of certain sectors of people. It's working together for the betterment of our state. And we cannot do it alone. Like, you reach out and you help people who can't help themselves or are struggling to some degree. The state has to admit that the lawmakers can't do it alone. It's not so bad to say you need help. We do that in our lives. We tell our children. If my granddaughter's telling me my son could be so rude because he's not helping her put on her shoes, so you try to teach a lesson. But sometimes, whether we're a toddler, we're a legislature, we need help. And your pride is not going to move this state forward. We've got to work together, just like families do. You take away a lot of the zeros, it's not much different what families are going through in their own homes and what the government is doing. We've got to work together and act like neighbors.
I think that's unfortunately. I think that's a part of things that we need to find a better way to do. And I think
got to start somewhere.
Sometimes it's walking out and talking to people. I know social media makes it so easy for you to express your opinions, but it puts up a barrier between people's true understanding, because I think we do go into our own little silos, so to speak, and don't take the opportunity to go out and get involved or to understand things from a different perspective. But much like a lot of corporations, I know from the nonprofit world, they do their day of giving. Maybe their day of giving should be done on election day, so it allows people to go out and vote, and then go out and serve their communities within the same respect. I know there's a lot of large companies, but maybe that's something that could work and would help and get people civically engaged, So I'm giving you your first idea.
No, you know what? It is great because it's been a lot of, it's been so much fun working on election days outside, beyond the 75 feet. People are excited. They bring their children. They want to take pictures. There is such a spirit. It is just spirit, a spirit of community. You're placing a voice in your society. You're making a difference in your town. And that is meaningful. It's so great when people want to share it with their children. And I think that, you know, people are generally very good and very giving. And it doesn't matter what level you give at. The fact that you share something, and people do like to share that with their children. And I think you're absolutely right, because it gives them another opportunity to share. I used to bring my son with me a lot when he was quite young to the Ronald McDonald House. I used to go after work every other Wednesday. And giving doesn't have to hurt. He would be playing, so for him it was great he was playing. But he understood that most of the children he was playing with spent the whole day at the hospital with a sick sibling, because that's where their parents were needed. But that child needed to be a kid also. And it was great that my son knew that he was able to do something and having a great time in between. And I think as parents, most parents want to exhibit that. And you're absolutely right. That is a perfect day of giving. You're giving a voice, you're shaping your future, and you're helping out. And you could see something being done right then and there. So great idea.
I know people always tell me, how am I going to talk for like 55 minutes? So you're down. We're down to our last few minutes. So I give you a couple minutes before we close to obviously make your pitch directly to the voters out there.
Okay.
As if this wasn't like a whole pitch in the first place.
Yes, I know. It was a whole pitch. Well, I would like to be the next Secretary of the State of Connecticut and work for you to help make a change in our government. I would be there to be a fighter. That's what I usually do. I wear these pink pumps. I said, my pink pumps, they pack a punch. So I'm not the type of person that if you walked up to me, I would say it's not my job description. If it's the governor's responsibility, I'm great at multitasking. I'd be out the door with my laptop, with my phone, until I got you your answer. But I think we need to kick it up a notch, have somebody who's going to get down to work, engage with our business community, give the support and the encouragement and the tools that those that look to that office need to do their job, and we could all just reach for the stars and move this state forward and have a great vision.
Well, I hope you bottle up some of that energy. I could use that some mornings.
My son says, would you please turn it down? I go, kiddo, you think it's easy living in this skin? So I've got to vent it, and it's been such a pleasure.
Can't thank you enough for coming up. I certainly, we're going to be looking around for you throughout the entire state and the message that you're bringing out. Obviously, you have the experience, you have the energy, and most important to me is you have the passion. And I like passionate people, because you know what? At the end of the day, they're the ones that can get things done. And for us and our communities here on Street Talk, obviously getting out and getting to know who you're voting for, not just a name or a line on the ballot, is the most important thing that you can do to be civically engaged, and to be able to go out and ask the questions of people that you want answered before you go out and vote is critical, because we only get one day a year to be able to make the difference, and you get 364 days to tell them what's coming up right before that one day that you go and vote for them. And talking to your representatives and your elected officers in your cities and your town, and being engaged is what's going to make a difference in your world. You can only complain if you go out and vote. So if you're not voting, I don't want to hear your complaints. With that, we can run the street.